Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Today is Monday, November the 22nd, and this chair definitely has just rearranged all my furniture, as it were. Yeah, it is weird to say the least. Let's hop in to Shadowverse. No, all of a sudden we're getting these like connection issues. Let's go back to the title and see if that's just because I've left it on the title screen or what. Seems like it fixes it when you just go back to the title screen, so there's something weird there. For the accountability section, I need to move everything down once I finish playing Cat's Quest, so that I'll switch my first monitor, which has the game, from being the one on top to the one on bottom, because I am just lower now. That would also help with the occasional glare that I would have run into on my top monitor. Would also potentially let me turn on more lights, although I'm not sure if I actually want more lights or less lights at this point. I've had some weirdness happen lately where my monitors are feeling a little bit dimmer, and I think maybe I'm getting a little bit sensitive to the bright lights being on. I just turned them off, in fact. Or maybe it's the opposite. Maybe the TV is just getting dimmer. It's a fairly old TV. Or it could be my eyesight is oddly getting dull, which it's not something you hear about happening too often, where your eyesight just starts to get dim or dull, but it can be a symptom of things like macular degeneration, glaucoma, retina damage, things like that. Although, in all fairness, I think it may not really be any of that. I think it may literally just be that the light bulbs and the reorienting of things are weird. Oh yeah, this was the free, like, log in every day and get a pack. I've totally forgotten about that. I have been playing Cat's Quest, and frankly, I'm probably 1 or 2 hour-long episodes away from finishing it, which is insane considering how it's an RPG game, but it is definitely an abridged, accelerated RPG game. I don't know if that's particularly a great thing. Like, Cat's Quest, even as an abridged experience, doesn't really come off as the greatest of RPGs. It's missing a lot of systems to be abridged, which is understandable, but then there really is just no variety in the caves. They don't even have dungeons, they're just all caves. I'm going to keep opening packs as long as I get something of some high value. Gold seems like high value. And the caves are incredibly small in Cat's Quest, and there's really no tricks, traps, puzzles. Variety of enemies is incredibly low. There's probably about 6 different types of enemies in the entire game, with one specific unique enemy, or maybe 2, in the final boss. Man, we are just getting great drops right now, so I'm going to stick with this. But yeah, I've been playing Cat's Quest, and it does seem like I can go into Ni no Kuni at this rate and try and play that, but I don't know if that inherently will give it one more. Just keep on gambling, right? That's how the addiction goes. But I wouldn't be surprised after actually grinding and having an RPG game that is much closer to an actual JRPG or an actual RPG that's like 200 hours instead of barely 20 hours in the case of Cat's Quest, that I'll be fairly burned out and not want to play anything more. I have played like Costume Quest 1 and 2, and those are effectively RPG games, even though they're shortened, and I feel like Cat's Quest is slightly better than Costume Quest, but not really much more better than that. So I'm still looking for a nice middle ground, something that could take 30 to 60 hours to play, but does have more variety in the gameplay. The idea in Cat's Quest that there aren't any other warriors or humans outside of the cities, and the only people you talk into the cities are the same peasants with the same character designs, and they say very generic lines of dialogue whenever you're talking to anybody. It's all incredibly generic, incredibly dull stuff. It's too oversimplified, and oddly not even that much faster, because you don't have a run button, which would really speed some things up. You don't have a town teleportation, which would really speed some things up. The way the side quests are designed are kind of insane, in that you are doing like step 1 of one side quest, which is a connected narrative, and each connective narrative has about 5 side quests, but you would never really be able to do all those side quests in a row. And even if you were able to do them all in a row, because of the level caps, say there was a new game plus and you were already at level 99, then you could do all the side quests in a row. That's fine. But the way the side quests go is that you go from the starting point in a city to a cave, almost always, clear out the cave, then you go back to that same city, where that makes sense in a new game plus if you're level 99, and then could do the next side quest step, which would be several more levels of difficulty higher. That works fine. But for first time players, it would make a lot more sense for you to have to go all the way around the world and visit other cities, or turn in a quest at a different city to pick up a different quest. And that doesn't fix the problem of the side quest narratives not really being connected in a way that you could actually remember what's being said and what's being done. But at least it would move you around the map a lot more. The way it's designed is that you pretty much just get into a region and stay in that region for several times for an hour or two, and then once you've cleared out that one region, you move on. I should have filtered this. That's what I was actually should have done. I'm not really paying attention enough. We just wanted to look at the 10 pages here to see what is left to potentially get from opening packs. It does look like it a little bit. Speaking of not remembering things, last week, because of my back mostly spasming and maybe just a tiny bit of your average insomnia, I really don't remember any of the games I looked at. So I don't feel like the yes-no accelerated concept really works. And having now slept on it. Also, what doesn't work is that, once again, like every Friday I say that I need to do some scheduling, and almost every Friday I don't schedule, or over the weekend I don't schedule things. I will also mention that the Tableau is kind of a deceptively expensive over-the-air DVR. I'll kind of leave it at that, but when you get a Tableau, and I got it cut on sale for about $200, but in reality, if you got one with an HDMI output, which is kind of what you would just assume that you could buy an over-the-air DVR that would let you plug in directly into a TV instead of only giving you the streaming options. If you buy those models, you don't get an internal hard drive, so that probably is the better bet, but then you're going to have to go buy at least a terabyte, probably closer to 2 or 4 terabytes of hard drive space. A significant amount of this also hinders around where you live. In a lot of places, you're going to get 4 channels, maybe a terabyte makes a lot of sense there. And the over-the-air DVR tableau is kind of targeted, I guess we'll be playing Bloodcraft today, to poor areas that would have fewer channels anyways. It doesn't really make a lot of sense for richer areas where you just potentially waste money and let's see, is this Bloodcraft? Yes, this is. You'd potentially just waste money and have cable or satellite. Dish in particular would be probably your best bet for a DVR if you were going to have satellite, but Dish is fairly expensive too. But yeah, you pay $200 for the unit. You get 30 days free for what they call the guide data. The 30 days ran out for me, and what you really get when the guide data and that 30 free days sample is gone is basically nothing, because what you effectively have at that point is a digital VCR, and much like a digital equivalent of a VCR, you would have to manually schedule every time slot. You don't have like show recognition or the idea of, well, this show might get bumped and air at a different time because they're running long, or the idea of this show airs on several channels and you just want to get all of them like a Netflix thing. Yeah, it really turns a tableau from looking like something that is over-the-air signal turned into Netflix into over-the-air signal turned into barely a VCR. And once those 30 days went out, it totally just disabled and removed and hid all of my recordings, except for the few manual ones I had made as an experiment. So yeah, just like unacceptably poor service there. Now, on the other hand, if you can trust that Tableau is going to stay in business for the next 3 years, which arguably maybe it will, maybe it won't, you could get a lifetime supply of the guide data, but specifically only for that one device. So if you have to buy 2 devices, which there is an argument to buying 2 devices to get more than 4 tuners or 2 tuners, and to get the ability to have things on different devices, so you kind of have folders, or one device is for kids and one device is for the parents type setup. You can, for like $180 on top of the $200, get a lifetime of the guide data, except for the fact that there is also a $20 a year premium service that includes commercial skip, and I'm not sure what else is actually in the premium service versus the guide service. I wouldn't be surprised if the $20 premium service actually is the thing that turns it more to a Netflix thing and lets you record specific shows instead of the guide data service being that. So you're about $400 in, just paying directly to Tableau, which in all fairness, a DVR probably is closer to a $500 device than you really would expect, and it's being subsidized heavily. It's kind of a shame that the Xbox did not go more in that direction, because if an Xbox One had become a TV DVR system, then that probably would have reduced the cost of them quite a bit. So yeah, you're about $400 in before you even put a hard drive in it. You're probably another $200 to put a hard drive in it. So you're $600 in. You're probably going to spend another $200 at that point, also to get an antenna. And if you don't have a Roku to use the Tableau, or Roku built into your TV, then you're another $100 in. So you're probably about $1,000 in, really, just for something that looks like a $200 device. In the first couple of months is going to cost you potentially $1,000, and that's a lot. And certainly when it's not being subsidized and reduced by monthly bills, that's a hard sell for a lot of people. Now, in comparison, my dish bill is over $100 a month. Most people's cable bill is over $100 a month. So if you're spending $1,000 in 1 month to get a lifetime of your guide data and to own the DVR and to not have to pay for over-the-air service, you've saved $200 in the first year, and you've saved $1,200 by the next year. If it is a one-to-one comparison, you probably would want to shave some of that off to convert what you were spending on cable for something like a Netflix, Disney Plus type subscription. So that may get you back up a couple $100 if you're paying $12 a year for Netflix or $20 a year for Disney Plus, whatever Disney Plus actually costs. The savings are still fairly high in the long run. This is one of those examples where if you can spend more early, you tend to save money in the long run. But that's only if you can. If you're constantly broke, you can't do that. If you're constantly having to take payday loans or borrow money some other way to pay for things, you can't do that. People that are living paycheck to paycheck are really not there. And you'd almost assume that an over-the-air DVR would be something more for the stereotypical broke farmer, which in most cases the stereotypical broke farmer isn't actually broke at all and is actually much closer to being high upper class, if not a millionaire, but they pretend like they're broke, and they seem to have a pretty great PR team to make people think that they are broke. And they definitely act like it. What does this have to do with video games? Not much, but it certainly is what I spent the last 4 hours working on, because I this morning had to reprogram after buying a single year of the guide data and the premium service, which I think that is the right move, is to give it a year. See, because if Tableau actually did go out of business, then I've got a useless piece of equipment, something maybe that there would be a little bit more motivation to hack. Without the guide data service, it still would work, but I'm fairly certain it would still work, but it really needs updates. It really needs some themes, some bigger fonts. I should definitely do some research just to see how long it's even been in business. I wouldn't be surprised if Tableau as a company is a spin-off of another company. I wouldn't be surprised if the Tableau itself is just a rebrand of something sold in China. Although the over-the-air signals in the United States are fairly different from the rest of the world, so that would be a little bit different. And yeah, in the case if you were in a smaller town, before I wrap up here, you probably are just going to get ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox, and PBS. If you get a 4TV tuner at that point, odds are there will never be a point where you couldn't just record everything during prime time with manual recordings. It would be a lot uglier, certainly, but you could certainly spread it out more and have a specific manual timer just to record Mondays, and at 7 to 7:30, then Mondays 7:30 to 8, and just keep on having different variations there. And then you wouldn't need the guide data. It just would look really bad. And I guess inherently, if you are coming from just having an antenna anyways, you may not notice how bad that really looks. Like, the steps I would suggest if you were going to try to cut the cord, or if you have always only watched TV over the air and never had any kind of TV provider, would be, first and foremost, have Roku TVs. Either replace your TVs or get a Roku for your TV. Odds are it probably would be better and you'd get extra benefits that you wouldn't realize just by replacing your TV for like a TCL. Maybe not get a Black Friday deal on a TV because those TVs often are fairly low quality, but heck, it can't be that bad. Like, just upgrading a TV if you haven't gotten a new TV in the past, I would say 7 years, you're probably going to be just shocked by how much brighter and wider the color gamut range is and how much better the screen is. And that's not even going from like a TV that would just be a 720p TV to a 4K TV. Like, even if you could just get a 1080p TV that's newer and you started with a 1080p, you probably would notice better graphics. And from that first step, getting a Roku TV, you could experiment certainly with, hey, do you need over-the-air content at all? Or could you just watch like Hulu, which Hulu is free, Netflix for $12 a month, because you kind of want Netflix anyways, Disney Plus, whatever those streaming services are. I wouldn't say go too far into it. I wouldn't suggest getting like Peacock or any of those streaming services that are specifically only for one channel. But yeah, do that first experiment, assuming you have any internet. If you don't have any internet, the Tableau's not going to work for you really anyways. I'd also say the Tableau's commercial skip feature is maybe not even worth $20 a year. Like, particularly if you're not used to that already.
What you need is a nice
but if you've got the TV set up to run Roku, then the next step would be to install an antenna and probably install an amplifier if you install an antenna in the proper place 10 feet above the roof lines of all the businesses around you, or all the buildings around you, all the trees around you. Once you have the over-the-air and you can watch the over-the-air live and you have the streaming, take a step back and see if that's good enough for you, and then get a Tableau and then do the 30 days. And I would recommend before the 30 days run up, 29 days into the free demo of the guide service, to go ahead and purchase the guide service. And I'd say get a year, but you could certainly do it monthly and pay like $5 a month too. It totally is not financially saving you anything doing it that way, but whatever. The main thing in particular is, how is this going to really work day in and day out? And honestly, I don't watch enough TV as much as I'm talking about it to really know if I'm making if it's a good service or not, or if it's a good experience or not. It could have all kinds of loading, lagging problems, and I could just not be seeing it. It could have connectivity issues. Ironically, also, if you're in a small town, there's a decent chance that even like a powered 100+ mile antenna, the biggest thing you could possibly put on it, may not really be enough to get you good signals.
The sacrifice must be paid.
Do I have anything else to talk about as far as the accountability section, catch-up section? I don't think so, so we'll leave it at that. We are definitely not getting anywhere fast with the blood. Let's try this bloodcraft instead. So I'm scrolling down my Twitter feed to see if there's any new news before we start. And then let's cover through the news. I said before, I'll say it again, that I feel like I really didn't ingest as much as I have in the past the games that were announced over the last week. But we still are in a problem where at any point my back could start hurting again. I'm still getting little twinges, and this recliner definitely has some weirdness where I'm not sure if I really want the recliner to be more laid back or if I want it to be straight up pushing me forward. It also, I don't know if I mentioned, this recliner had been sitting around for several years not used, and the second I started sitting on it, the fake leather on it immediately started to crack. Which, yeah, that sucks. I'll find an opportune time to spend a little bit of extra money sometime outside of the holiday season and just get a cloth wrap for the whole thing. That way it'll still crack, but the pieces won't flake everywhere. Yeah, I would heavily recommend, although I don't have a lot of experience with furniture fabric styles, I would probably heavily recommend having a thick fabric on any kind of chair or recliner, and not going for leather, which is almost certainly going to be fake leather, or it's not going to be like the most expensive stretched leather that you would have to put lotion on, basically, because it is actual animal flesh that dries out. I think cloth is probably your better bet there. It's kind of a shame there isn't another option, but I guess those are the two options. It certainly might also explain why you probably won't see as many leather or fake leather looking pieces of furniture, chairs, recliners. Honestly, I think for furniture in general, is don't get precious with it would be my suggestion more than anything. Get something that looks like it'll stand up and last you decently and doesn't cost that much. Don't try to decorate your house with furniture, because it is really a more utilitarian thing as far as furniture should be, instead of decorative. Like, ideally you would want everything to match, but I have like one bookshelf or a set of bookshelves that look very nice, and then I have cheap white Walmart bookshelves, and both of them have accomplished their jobs perfectly fine, and I have never really had more than a slight twinge when looking at the cheap Walmart white shelves. definitely not enough to make me feel like I made a bad decision, or that
Scatter like the blossom.
I would want to replace them.
Okay. No more games.
Particularly in the case of bookshelves.
Little hex's
Like,
payback.
once again, to get back to utility, you're putting something fancy on the bookshelf. You're going to look at the thing that's fancy on the shelf. You're not going to look at the bookshelf itself.
Need balance,
More than likely.
and I'll provide it.
Power is what you make of it.
And every single time I try to click on a link,
Access.
like the first link always has it drag it out to a new window. I need to figure out if there's maybe a way to stop that from happening, where you just can't drag tabs out into new windows at the very least. Alright, let's go over the news. VideoGameDeveloper.com says Jurassic World Evolution 2 launch sales were lower than expected on PC. Frontier believes that the faltering start is a potentially short-term effect from a more crowded release window. I would say there's definitely a chance that they did not advertise it well enough, because I didn't even know that game was coming out.
A precious life deserves a precious death. More jewels, more.
There we go.
Raise the price. There's a
Here we have a
reason
game
why.
on Steam called Laser Boy, and once again I'm gonna go back to the old way, look at these screenshots a little bit more. This is a game that usually I can dismiss, but I don't need to try and rush through it.
And I'll provide
It's
it.
English, it's free. It's just free.
Now die.
Looks kind of like CGA graphics. Nintendo UK has launched its Black Friday deals, including Switch console bundles, according to Video Games Chronicles.
I paid so much for that
I guess this would be the UK online store.
Verifying access.
We are in a kind of funny position because I would very much like to not buy anything for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, but also it's kind of hard to be certain that would happen,
corpses.
because it is a little dumb to turn a blind eye to potential sales if you really need those things. So far, I've seen a bunch of sales for things I don't really need. Although now does look like a fairly decent
Shutting
time
down.
to buy a Switch OLED and video games,
They don't kill you.
but I think generally any time will be a good time to buy a Switch OLED and video games.
Power is what you make of
Like,
it.
particularly in the case of video games for the Switch and video games in general, is that the price either stays the same or goes down. Very rarely have I seen something on Steam in particular for PC gaming where it has been cheaper, but it was cheaper many years ago, and now doesn't go that cheap.
Come, show me the limits of your will.
Okay. Guess you go 2, 4, and 6 there.
Now you've done it.
The ESA retweeted this Wall Street Journal article, What to Know About Teen Boys and Video Games According to Teen Boys, and this is by somebody different. It definitely feels like the Wall Street Journal has now just straight up expanded itself into being a website that talks about video games. Which, at a certain point, I want to just know what the Wall Street Journal looks like when we just click the main page. You've got stock tickers, so it does seem like it is heavily focused on Wall Street still. But then you've got a lot of articles, not so much, I think, about sports. Life and work. These categories are fairly simplistic, and their website needs some work, I think. Rethink these categories. There's no reason to have real estate if it's only going to have 2 categories. You might as well just have commercial real estate and residential real estate at that point, where some of these other columns go crazy. Business in general almost feels like it is redundant on top of these other categories. At a certain point, I feel like the Wall Street Journal writing these video game articles does feel like they are giving some honor and respect to video games in general and saying, yeah, video games are big business. On the other hand, I wouldn't be surprised if the Wall Street Journal is kind of just insufferable and impossible to read in general as a newspaper or online, and you actually wouldn't ever want to hear anything from the Wall Street Journal. There is, interestingly here, a video game giant confronts a culture crisis as a 21-minute podcast, I suppose. But most of this does seem to be finance and politics and just kind of boring stuff, not video game related. I would say there is definitely a danger in the ESA retweeting a Wall Street Journal article, but it almost certainly was a puff piece specifically written to like make video game companies look good and make them not look like they are potentially the ones responsible for instilling or
Appointed sword deserves
or
appointed response.
at least promoting
Enhance. Fire.
overplaying of video games, wasting your time with video game elements. Like, at the core of it, without actually reading the article, let's think about it. When's the last time you saw a video game that doesn't have at least one element in it that's just a huge time waster? Like playing Cat's Quest even, which is seemingly from the outright an abridged, accelerated experience in RPG games, it still has a ton of grinding in it. Like, there's still some places where you could have sped things up. It still has side quests that are just unnecessary and poorly written, and that is true for almost every game. On a certain level, maybe that's what video games are, and maybe that's what gamers want. I might very well be in a different position compared to young gamers in particular, who have far fewer games to play, but yeah, I bet the latest Pokemon Shield and Sword game was the same 200 hours, if not more, than Pokemon Red and Blue was. And I can definitely tell you Red and Blue had a lot of grind in it and a lot of time wasters. That is one of the things that I personally don't understand with the whole like screen time concept, which is a concept that seems like it makes sense, although at a certain point limiting people's screen time has to be balanced with actually setting up and enabling other activities. It is not realistic, in my opinion, to tell somebody tell a kid you have 2 hours of screen time tonight, but then you have to go and sit in your room and twiddle your thumbs or read a book. Like,
Scatter like the blossom.
just so much is on screens these days to say you can't like read articles or news on a screen because that cuts into your screen time. It's kind of ridiculous. Of course, I came from an era where effectively I had unlimited screen time and played ridiculous amounts of video games, and yeah, I definitely would have not tolerated the idea of screen time at all. It would have been a huge fight, and I would have not been happy with it if I even came to accept it. But I do think it's probably the right thing to do. It's just games themselves are not adjusting or accounting for that. Like, games are not getting shorter, they're getting longer. And they have more microtransactions nowadays than they could have ever sold in the old days, because they couldn't have had microtransactions before the internet. But there definitely are cheats and microtransactions that would have been free cheats or cheat codes or Game Genie codes that are now being sold to you, and because they're making money from those cheats and those microtransactions, they are making a lot of games even more grindy.
And so our pact is full.
Having not actually played Breath of the Wild, I can't help but think that maybe some of the elements in Breath of the Wild are unnecessarily added. The cooking, the climbing with the stamina, all of that potentially maybe didn't need to really exist and would have given you a faster experience.
You have summoned the blade of purgation here.
Moving on, Rockstar admits the GTA trilogy didn't meet their standards and releases their first patch. This is from Video Games Chronicle. The PC originals have also returned to its stores free for Deluxe Edition owners. The first patch, I believe, has fixed about 50 things and added a new rain effect. But, I mean, honestly, this was a great example of a game that really had no reason to launch pre its first patch anyways. You could have simply delayed the launch. It's not like anybody is dying to
The truth lurks in the dark.
dying to play these old GTA games. They could have been surprise releases on Christmas Day for as much as anybody cared, unless there's actually some financial troubles at Rockstar, which maybe there isn't. Here's the more direct article from Video Games Chronicles. The patch fixes 50 issues, including a new rain effects. Update targets a range of issues across GTA, Vice City, and San Andreas. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the effects that they rushed to patch and fix are actually things that they've been joked and memed about. Yeah. These rain effects don't look terrible. It's kind of ridiculous to swim underwater and see them. Almost at some point, I'm willing to excuse just a ridiculous amount of things wrong with an old game anyways, because I would just kind of assume that that is the standard way things were back then.
Give in to your desires.
The truth lurks in the dark.
What does this one do?
The
Take
truth
damage to an
loves
enemy follower.
A precious life deserves a
and
precious
so our
death.
pact is
More jewels, more.
Just assume that was right.
Raise the price.
I kind of hope the definitive edition of GTA actually does get patched and fixed. Certainly, but I also kind of wouldn't care if it didn't. Like, there really is no skin off my back if it
Don't forget to snag the merch.
if it never happens.
Do not seek what is not there.
vice, virtue, avarice, tolerance.
I don't even know what to really classify the GTA series
Must be paid.
as. So, like, I would kind of call it just an open world crime simulator game. If I was going to cover it, I probably would try and just rush through the main story and kind of nothing else.
Allow me to bestow the crimson kiss. Melt under my touch.
Let's see. Video Games Chronicle continues. Call of Duty's new Warzone map has been delayed to Halo Infinite's release day. Caldera will now clash with the Xbox's big launch. Almost certainly that was done on purpose. Kind of stupidly too. I don't think Call of Duty is going to benefit at all from that. Although, in all fairness, I believe Call of Duty has just been a terrible launch anyway, so this might be a great way for them to hide how terribly it goes as far as the launch by saying, oh, it's all Halo's fault when it really isn't.
Come, show me the limits of your will.
Let's see what this horrible night can do for us.
Lose yourself in this
I had totally
final
forgotten about
dance.
Urias as a vampire. Ward
You have summoned the blade of purgation here.
and play this. Feel like I just need to
Weak.
play all of these.
Oh, waffle cakes.
Oh, I needed to play all of these. Definitely playing this one would have been useful.
I'll see you in purgatory.
That was almost amusing.
Video Game Chronicles says it is being reportedly the Star Wars Battlefront Plans 3 were reportedly, quote, rejected by EA. DICE is instead working on another Battlefield project, it's claimed. So, yeah. Battlefront, not Battlefield, if I said that wrong. Yeah, Battlefront 2 had enough controversies around it to definitely make
Good.
a argument to take some time or not
Your head
release.
and body must part ways.
I only deliver the most. I'll split you like a diamond.
Yeah. I don't know if we really need any more Battlefront Star Wars games. Honestly, I'm not sure we ever needed them, frankly. Let's see. Video Games Chronicle says a store listing suggests a Mass Effect Legendary Edition could be coming to Games Pass. Although I thought these rumors were already denied. So, we'll see. Sega has clarified its quote alliance with Microsoft won't result in Xbox exclusives. The Xbox Forum is providing tech support for Sega's Super Games. It claims. I guess that's it, not IT. And we're not getting anywhere with either one of these. We might as well just not be playing ranked. That would be the smarter move. And we really don't even have a lot of news today, so I could see this creating a scenario where we get through all the news and then I just won't have the daily quest on and whatever. At that point, I don't care. I'll just move on. So I went back quite far as games to November 18th, as far as games that came out according to what's on Steam. So we have one here called Uberlaufer, which I may have put on the following list. Yes, I did.
Fire.
So honestly, there may be a couple days here where there are just things already on the following list. Nerf Legends, Parabellum, Hold the Line. Obviously, I would have dismissed completely out of hand. We may just do a follow list cleanup at this rate. Which that works too, frankly. If we just get through all the news and get through all the games that have come out. As Back Alley Inn looks like nothing. It's $5.94, English only. Here we have a all Asian game, which probably doesn't support English. Yep, and that's would have been why I would have dismissed it. Here we have a game called The Crafter's Defense, which looks like nothing. $12.74, English only. Here we have Castle in the Sky, Clash of Sky Palace. Looks like hand-drawn animation. I don't think there's a real game here though. Kind of looks like it's a mobile game with on-screen controls. English and traditional Chinese selling for $15.29. That's way too expensive.
And so our pact is formed.
Here we have a game called Royal Riders, which looks like nothing. It might be a... what is that? Angry Birds clone, I guess. I'm a little surprised they didn't make more Angry Birds clones back when Angry Birds was popular, but Angry Birds really was only popular for maybe 6 months or so. This is $1.49, English, allegedly full audio. Next we have Vacation Adventures Cruise Director 5, which obviously is a hidden object game from a different company. It's kind of interesting art here. You saw this in the early 2000s where people were trying to make like hyper-realistic 3D characters and maybe even integrate photography. These could be actually rotoscoped photographs being cut and pasted into the images. Kind of feels like they might be that. Yeah, that kind of got dropped. And at a certain level, we have taken steps away from trying to depict humans to actually look like humans, and instead we've created this we've created a fiction not unlike the anime moe style, in which video game characters actually don't look like humans, or aren't quite looking like humans. and that seems to be the preferred art style. If absolute direct visuals were what we were shooting for in mainstream AAA games, we would just be filming people, because we're effectively, with the face capture, face rig stuff, filming people anyways, and there's obviously an attempt there to have the main characters face rigged and scanned while having the unimportant third tier characters, the NPCs, just be randomly made using software, and they're trying to find a happy medium between those two levels of detail.
I'll see you in purgatory.
Full motion videos would also be a lot more popular if that was really what people wanted. It almost kind of feels like the Hong Kong movies, where Hong Kong is just such a noisy place, all the audio is dubbed in later. Seems like there might just be limitations. Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Gonna have to fix myself up.
Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Not Another Dungeon, which looks like it's trying to be a collectible card game, but the animation style is pretty awful. It's free, single player only, with a third-party EULA, which is very weird. English and German. Kind of weird to have a collectible card game in general that, or any kind of card game in general, that doesn't have some level of multiplayer.
Now the fight begins.
Here we have Tyrannog, which just looks like an RPG Maker game. It's $12.74 in English only. And I'm fairly certain we did cover all these games. Here we have something called My Fingers, which looks like nothing. $6.24, $6.29. Several languages being supported.
Let the immorality tour begin.
Evolve this.
And so our pact is forged.
Give in to your desires.
Running is always an option.
Video Games Chronicles says Gotham Knight Studio WB Games Montreal is working on a second project. The employee CV seemingly reveals an unannounced game, which, that either means that they are done with this game, or they are working on 2 games at the same time, or they've canceled this game. Which at a certain level, I wouldn't be surprised if they canceled the Gotham Knights game. It really wasn't ever going to make a lot of sense to me to have a game kind of around Batman, where I kind of feel like Batman may very well have died in the last Arkham game, or either that, or they are just trying to they are trying specifically to get away from Batman and have his family, the Bat family, be more important. Unfortunately, there's just no way to pull that off. DC comic books in particular have centered almost the entirety of DC around Batman. Like Superman, Wonder Woman, sure they play a role, but they kind of play roles more in the movies than they even do in the comic books. There definitely feel like there have been times where Batman has shown up in half of all of the 52 potential DC comic books that are released in a month. So I don't know how you fix that in the video games. And it is kind of a catch-22, because Batman as a video game hero kind of sucks. as a hero in general, he kind of sucks. As an anti-hero, he kind of sucks. He's not the Punisher because he won't use guns. Most video games have guns in it. That's a problem. He's not a good character. His motivations are often super limited and light. The enemies he fights over and over again are the exact same rogue galleries. It's just Joker, maybe the Riddler, maybe the Scarecrow, then Joker again, then maybe Mr. Freeze, maybe the Penguin, then Joker again. Maybe you'll throw in Catwoman as the hero, maybe you'll throw her in as a bad guy. They stopped really innovating with Batman probably around the time with Batman 66 and the TV show, when nobody actually cared about Batman. He's become way too precious now to actually do anything interesting with. And honestly, I guess that would be my desire. If I was forced to make a Batman game, I probably would want to make a Batman 66 game, something very kid-friendly, something like the Lego Batman games, which I think worked fairly well. Go cheesy, go kid-friendly, add in a bunch of ridiculous characters like Calendar Man. And that is kind of what Arkham Asylum tried to do, is add in a whole bunch of characters, but then they tried to make it very serious. I also think that the idea of Arkham Asylum being kind of a Metroidvania failed fairly horribly, in that it wasn't really much of a Metroidvania, and when you get to Arkham City, you are very, very much far away from the idea of it being a Metroidvania style game. And Arkham Knights, from the looks of it, I don't think ever were really going to be much of a Metroidvania experience. They were always pushing, starting with Arkham City, to have larger and larger areas, and at some point the idea of having larger and larger areas got away from being larger and larger areas in a Metroidvania game into larger and larger open world areas. It feels like the whole series was just trying to chase the latest fads in video games instead of establishing itself. And now Arkham Knights is seemingly trying to continue to chase fads by making a multiplayer focused game, 4-player multiplayer focused game, instead of sticking with the Metroidvania idea or doing something that kind of would make some sense for the Bat family or Batman in general. I also wanted to mention, there was a Dragon Ball Z Breakers game we talked about. I was not paying anywhere enough attention. Apparently, this Dragon Ball Z Breakers game that I talked about several days ago is set in the Xenoverse universe, but is actually a stealth game where you are running away from a cosmic horror of Frieza, Cell, Boo, instead of fighting him, which is an interesting idea, certainly, to make a Dragon Ball game that's not a fighting game, or not much of a fighting game. But at a certain point, did you just skin some stealth game to make it look like a Dragon Ball game, or is there actual logic behind this decision?
Check out my fancy footwork.
Okay.
Get ready to fly.
You have summoned the blade of purgation here.
Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Mark Cerny reveals some PlayStation 5 hardware secrets in a new video. I don't know what specifically hardware secrets would be that interesting. Like,
Now the fight begins.
it probably isn't going to be a case where you
Time
can
for games is
get
over.
into some kind of god mode or
I'll see
Or-
you in purgatory.
that there is some capability that just hasn't been programmed for yet. It rarely nowadays has been a case that we've seen any piece of hardware that like secretly had something it could do but wasn't implemented just because of programming that was that interesting. Instead, it's much more of a case where they straight up came out with the Xbox Series consoles and the PlayStation 5 telling you that there was a way to expand the hard drive space, but they hadn't programmed for it or implemented it yet. And that worked fairly fine because for the most part you were unlikely to fill up your hard drive in the 6-month launch window before they finally did program into the PlayStation 5 how to put in NVMe hard drive, or in the case of Microsoft, it took them about the same 6-month launch window to get the proprietary hard drives on the shelves. Moving on, Video Games Chronicles says players are exploring the Warzone's new Caldera map via spectator cam. A similar bug revealed the Verdansk in 2019. So, okay. I don't really care about Warzone, so I'll leave that article there. Battlefield 2042 now has over 17,000 mostly negative reviews on Steam. This is, I guess, different than Warzone, but in my mind it really does just all blend together, so I really couldn't tell you the difference. EA Shooter is now one of the worst reviewed games on Steam. I'd kind of like to see the list of the worst reviewed games on Steam. Although, in all fairness, I'm sure there's plenty of games out there that literally have one review that's negative, and at a certain point, doesn't that make that a more worse reviewed game? Because that's 100% where if there's 17,000 negative reviews, there's probably a few thousand positive reviews that would balance that out. Even if that was just people being contrarians. Let's see. The reasons for negative reviews seem to be very valid and all over the place. We are nicely so far not hearing people use the dumb phrase of review bombing. Maybe in this case it's because none of the mainstream video game journalists care about Battlefield or EA, and it is particularly the meme to hate on EA. Anyways.
Allow me to bestow a crimson kiss.
But yeah. Says the player base is frustrated with issues like a lack of leaderboard, empty maps, and problem with in-game vehicles. Yeah. Battlefield 2042 launched without support for in-game voice chat, and it's currently unclear if the feature will be added. I wouldn't also be surprised if Battlefield in particular is the company that is just constantly like banning people and like proud about the fact that they're banning people. Far too proud about the fact that they're banning people. That might be part of it too.
Victory is all that matters.
I wouldn't be surprised if some people even say Battlefield 2042 is getting negative reviewed simply because of the problems with the previous Battlefield. But if we start to get down that road in which everything just gets blamed on some fictional hate mob that is still holding a grudge from years previous, I mean, that's gonna get ridiculous real fast.
You something.
I seriously doubt the goldfish-like memories of gamers would lead to anybody boycotting or not playing it, or negative reviewing at least the game. It would be really stupid to buy a game and just to review it negative. That is much more in the lines of some percentage of the mainstream video game journalists who are still shrouding about Gamergate nearly a decade later. It feels like it's been a decade at this point.
Check out my fancy footwork. Get ready to fly.
Darn it! I won't lose next time.
Guess we'll just end that here. I don't trust this article one bit, or this statement one bit. Video Games Chronicle says Bobby Kotick is reportedly willing to resign if he can't quickly fix the Activision Blizzard issue. The criticized exec is said to have fielded questions from leaders last week. He hasn't quickly fixed it in what seems like months, if not years. I think these accusations are going over the course of at least the last 6 months, probably the last 6 years, if not longer. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these accusations literally line up to like 10 years ago, and there's just been no way to fix it. There is also I think a case that he owns so many shares in the company that if he doesn't want to go, it may be close to impossible to actually force him out. And people's desire, regardless, may not change that.
I'm the most fabulous demon of them all. Out of the way! Out of the way! Out of the way!
2, 4. This is not working. I just signed my own death warrant here.
You have summoned the blade of purgation here.
It would be very smart, frankly, for Bobby Kotick just to step down and maintain his shares. Like, maintain his shares even for a week after he steps down, and then he could sell his shares, and the price would probably be fairly high. But yeah, I can't imagine a scenario where Bobby Kotick, who has been running the ship, steering the ship up until this point, is somehow going to prove himself to be this genius leader that can fix things.
I can't believe you slapped me!
But I wouldn't be surprised if that is exactly how a lot of CEOs see themselves, is that they are these kind of like genius leaders that
This is freedom.
are the only people on the planet that can run a business and make it successful.
I refuse to fail.
Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Super Driver, which looks like nothing of interest. $2.69, English allegedly full audio.
Like the moon on the
Here we have a game called Dr. Ewan Evolution, which looks like nothing. $6.29, English and Chinese. We have a game called Today Encontre, which sounds like it's maybe Spanish or French. Looks like one of these horror asset flip games. $3.99, English, Spanish, Latin America. There was a TV show where clearly the writers didn't really know how VR worked, but basically the VR game itself basically had a demon in it, and these kids were playing with this VR headset, and they were summoning images of demons. This game, too, in contrary, definitely looks like it's more of an asset flip horror game.
Pointed response.
At a certain level,
Before Dark Dragoon.
it almost would be interesting to have some kind of like augmented reality, you've summoned a demon experience, but I don't know to what end. Like, at a certain point, it doesn't feel like that would be much different than Pokemon Go, where you would at some point want to just collect them all. Freak people out, like destabilize people's mental health. I don't know what game you can really put around that. Moving on, we have a game on Steam here called Neon Bricks, which is just an Arkanoid clone. 79 cents, English only. They're comparing it to Pinball FX3. Here we have a game called Snake Force, which I remember looking at this. Very positive, free to play, English and Chinese. This one didn't look much like enough of a game to interest me though, so I said no. Even though it is very positive. At a certain point, I guess I am getting away from the idea of just total mob rule. I pretty much have never followed that rule. I've never just said in general that I would play every game that was positively reviewed on Steam. I do need individual desire for that to make sense for me.
I'll split you like a diamond.
Let's see if we can actually activate this and play this right.
More jewels, more.
I think we talked about Redestiny as a sexual content match 3 game. You can see it's already rated mixed, so people aren't really liking it. Compared to Honey Pop, which is overwhelmingly positive. I need to get around to playing Honey Pop too. This is $1.37, Japanese full audio, Chinese, and English. Let's see. Need to do which one first? Do this one and then this one.
Check out my fancy footwork.
And then attack there. And then I think we talked about Fire Puzzle Save the House, which, yeah, it's a logic puzzle game. Looks kind of low effort.
I'll cut the vanguard.
99 cents, English only. Here we have a game called Wonky Wizard, which looks like nothing of interest. Free to play, English only. Here we have Hero of the Kingdom, Lost Tales 2, which I think I just rejected because it looked too old and it was not really relevant or recognizable. I would have a hard time really thinking that I'd want to go back and play this. Honestly, this looks like this is more of a resource management game than I thought it was, actually. Yeah, this is one of those city resource management games. Okay. You hit this one.
Finish the job.
And then you do this.
Show me the limits of your will.
You evolve this.
Scatter like the blossom.
Lose yourself in this final dance.
Get ready to
Do this.
Melt under my
Do this. We're gonna now get rid of this one. And guess this one. And I guess This one.
You have summoned the blade of purgation here.
Didn't play fast enough. Video Games Chronicle has a review saying the new Game Master TV show is much better than it has any right to be. Game Master being a UK show where people played video games. It seems like,
There's a lot more where that came from.
yeah, it does seem like they put more polish to it. It's not completely out of the realm of possibility that Game Master in the UK succeeds well enough that they bring it over to the US or other countries. Seems like it's Channel 4, which I thought they changed the name to Channel 4 to Dave, but maybe they've changed it back to Channel 4, or maybe there's a new Channel 4. Do this one. Do this.
Let the immorality tour begin.
Evolve.
Get ready to fly.
I have done the gods'
Give in to your
bidding.
desire.
You're a fiery one. Weak.
It seems like what has happened here
Weak.
is we've established an effect here where we can't hurt ourselves while doing damage to other people, while still doing damage to other people, so that might actually work fairly nicely. Yeah. On the other hand, much like G4, I don't know if there really is any value in trying to make TV shows around video games. In a lot of ways, it feels like you're just at a certain point making something like Game Master, not too different from the idea of just having a Twitch streamer stream playing a game, or even what I do. Like, at least I put some criticism and reviews in it, but what I'm doing isn't too far away from what XPlay does. And maybe XPlay does it a lot better, let's be honest. Guess if we do this.
Before darkness eternal.
I think that maybe guarantees me victory. I just saw my cell phone light up, but I threw it across the room, and even reaching is where my back tends to twinge. Yeah, it seems like that's probably just a calendar notification, not a phone call. Yeah. Yeah, that wasn't anything of importance. I thought somebody was trying to call me. Which, honestly, the last time somebody called me may have been 3 years ago. Minimum. Like, I may have not received a phone call from anything other than spam in the last 3 years. I still get the occasional text, and certainly a lot of two-factor authentication and security still go through phone numbers, unfortunately. Probably shouldn't, but there's still a lot of services that don't offer using an authenticator app over using a cell phone number. Moving on to video game news, it looks like Halo Infinite's campaign doesn't unlock new armor. Emblems and coding appear to be the majority of the campaign's unlockables. If I do ever get around to playing Halo Infinite, like, I don't think I'm gonna care at all as far as armor or appearance.
You dare to defy the
If it
shadows?
unlocks something that changed stats, maybe I'd be interested then, but probably not. There was another story, I don't know if I even talked about it, where this is the first Halo game specifically focused to be a better experience playing on normal, whereas the previous Halo games had been more focused around the expert levels of difficulty. So at that point, even if there aren't a lot of different stat changing armors in the game, it may not matter. Video Games Chronicle says Sony's patent suggests that official PS5 faceplates could be on their way. Really late to the party, frankly. That should have been on day one. That's something Nintendo would have done in years past. Just like day one, we have multiple faceplates coming soon, at least, if not available for purchase on day one. Also, there was that whole story about some Sony trying to sue one of the faceplate makers that already existed, Dark Plates, which didn't really make a lot of sense at all. Really doesn't feel like any kind of patent. And once again, this is ridiculous that there would be a patent in the first place for something so simplistic as a vacuum formed piece of plastic. Like, some patents, some trademarks make sense, but the vast majority of them feel like they are just ridiculous corporate protectionism of big corporations against small and medium corporations. And that certainly is how you increase the power of rich people, oligarchs,
And so our
is
pact
by
is full.
passing laws to protect big corporations and moneyed interests. Video Games Chronicles has an article. A Walmart Plus membership includes early access to Black Friday's deals starting today. We had kind of already known about this. The whole Walmart Plus concept, though, doesn't really make a lot of sense. Here you have PlayStation 5 console at its MSRP. Like, you're really not getting any discounts. Some of these video games at $14 might make sense. This 4K TV at $500 kind of would make sense, but only if it wasn't a special model missing features or made to a lower quality. Like, which it very possibly is missing features or is made to a lower quality, so it's not worth even buying online. Honestly, I think there's a high chance that if you're not going for these doorbuster deals and wasting your time and risking your life going through the doorbuster deals, I don't know if there really is a Cyber Monday, Black Friday sale experience to be had where you actually get savings or where it's worth your time. This very well may be a case, and I'm using that phrase too much. I'm using my same old repetitive phrases I'm recognizing a lot today. We may see evidence when all is said and done after Cyber Monday that buying things during the Amazon.com Prime Day for me was a better deal than waiting for Black Friday. That being said, there still was a Lego double VIP weekend this weekend, so I did buy a lot of Legos, more Legos than I probably could justify to anybody if I had to justify it, because I really haven't done a lot of Lego creation this year. So I still have, I probably have about 20 pretty big sets of Legos. So I need to find some time to actually do some more Lego.
And so our pact is forged.
Moving on, Halo Infinite goes gold,
Is forged.
due out December 8th, according to Gamatsu. Witchwood launches December 9th for the PS5 and the Xbox Series X, PS4, Xbox One, and Switch and PC.
You have
So basically
summoned
everything.
The blade of purgation here.
Have I seen Witchwood? This game still got the blur going on. The blurring effect is sticking better than some of the other effects. 'Cause I have so many like YouTube modifying things. Like some of the ad blocking stuff seems like it needs an update. This game Witchwood might be good. Could also be kind of nothing. I'm kind of glad there aren't more games like Cat's Quest in particular. If you were gonna just try and for every low effort visual novel, if there instead had been a abridged RPG game, I would probably be annoyed by that.
Scatter like the blossom.
Okay, no more.
I'll see you in purgatory.
Here we have a game called Exquisite Corpse Story, which looks like a visual novel drawn pretty terribly. Feels like they're trying to draw something like a Garfield character. I'm a little surprised nobody's ever made a video game based off that I'm Sorry John meme where Garfield is this horrific monster that just is crazy. Although in all fairness, some of those like Junji Ito style really, really creepy art things are so creepy I'm not sure you could ever market it. Even the like H.R. Giger stuff, I'm not sure if I pronounced his name right. I've forgotten how he pronounced it. Like even that art style really went through some levels of censorship and watering it down when it got to the Aliens movies.
Flash of metal, a silent night.
I'm falling apart?
I wouldn't be surprised if that just does not work particularly for too many games. We have seen a few games like that that do have some fairly horrific graphics. Scorn is theoretically still being worked on and it's going to kind of look like that. And there have been some adventure games, point and click games that have looked like that. Although the smaller the game is, the less it has to worry about having a small audience.
Genuflect before darkness eternal. Falling apart?
It would be really weird if, say, Gearbox tried to make a Borderlands and the art style was something close to an H.R. Giger or an I'm Sorry John art style, Junji Ito style. Arguably, some of these art styles also don't work too well in motion or in color. There was a game that basically was based off the art style of Junji Ito that came and went and not too many people have talked about it. Here we have a game on Steam called Forgotten Souls, which looks like some kind of board game. Kind of looks like a board game I played a long time ago, but I don't think it really is that. And well, the pieces look similar, but the board layout looks completely different. Yeah, this does not look interesting. It's free, English only. Here we have Hidden Objects Sleeping Beauty Puzzle Fairy Tale, which is obviously just a hidden object game. $2.69. It's definitely not asking for much. Whole bunch of languages. There is also always a possibility, though, if a hidden object game like this is really short, that it would be fairly disappointing and still not really worth that cheaper price. Arcane Wolves. Yeah, I think you have to do this one. I think that's your first move. Yeah, we have a game called Nyx Umbra, which looks like it is a little too dark screenshot syndrome for its own good. Speaking of darkness, yeah, if my eyesight really did start going really bad and I could not see or play video games, I don't know what I would do with myself. I'm like, I will jokingly say I might jump off a bridge, but yeah, it almost certainly is a nightmare to potentially have to adjust your lifestyle if you actually went blind. Now, there's a long gap between going blind and potentially just having poor eyesight. So that is also something to consider. And if it's over a longer period of time that one starts losing their eyesight, you have more room for an adjustment there. But yeah, I definitely would not be in a good mood, to say the least, if I had something severely limiting the amount of games I could play. I already have a little bit of arthritis in my hands and a bad back and just so many other problems that are limiting the amount of time I can spend playing games. And if I didn't have those limitations, I would be making double the amount of content, and I don't know if that would help my channel in any way, but it would be ideally what I would want to do.
Like the moon on the water's surface.
But away from theoretical possible negative things, let's look at this game called Zoosim, which is a realistic negative thing in the sense that it looks like garbage. $4.79, English, allegedly full audio. We have a game called Timescape Altitude, which looks like a VR plane flying simulator. Seems like you also get out of the chair and look at the back of it. Nope, it's not flying the plane. It's an escape the room, where you have to solve a series of puzzles to escape. Honestly, I don't know if this isn't too far from an escape the room I saw a YouTuber do just a few days ago. It's an interesting idea, English and Chinese. I'll put it on the follow list. There definitely is a thought there where if you were doing an escape the room experience in VR, you could bring those experiences to more people. Here we have a game called Miskatonic, which looks like some kind of VR game, but it doesn't really look like anything. Yeah, the video, it doesn't look like much. I saw something about a VR game that reads your your brain.
Come on.
It kind of reads your brain waves like the toys do, and so like the calmer you make your brain, that causes you to cast a different spell. It may have been a Skyrim mod actually. But yeah, those little toys never really worked or made sense, and they really wouldn't make a lot of sense in a video game where you would potentially have to take a break and calm your mind to cause something to happen, or agitate your minds to make something else happen.
And so our pact is formed.
Yeah. I suppose if they ever did perfect the idea of brain-computer interfaces to the point where it was safe and easy to do and cheap, that is just an input. The output would still be a thing. Like, we have only made a few steps towards the idea of like artificial optic nerves and replacements of retinas and corneas and things like that. I'm yawning, so probably am getting a little bit tired at this point, but that is a better outcome than just being in pain and having to wrap up because of that.
Check out my fancy footwork. Get ready to fly.
Seriously?
This ought to put the fright in you.
You have summoned the blade.
Let's see. Komatsu has an article here. Final Fantasy IX Memoria Project teaser trailer. A non-playable fan-made passion project that aims to reimagine the RPG in modern graphics. Which, at a certain point, there's just no reason to care at all about a fan project. It's never going to be allowed to be released in any way. Even if it is released, it will never be commercially sold. It will never really affect the future or the true canon history of Final Fantasy.
Purgatory.
Ding dong.
Yeah.
May happiness be with you.
Let's see. Project L, a League of Legends assist-based fighting game, finds its foundation, according to Komatsu. They are going really crazy with these League of Legends spin-off games. Which at a certain level, it kind of makes sense if you acquire a League of Legends company, which I believe is NetEase, or NetEase acquired a whole bunch of other companies, it definitely would make sense to just put them all on the projects of working,
Allow me to bestow a crimson kiss.
like put them all on projects that are tied into the League of Legends universe, or tying in all existing projects into the League of Legends universe. If they were just already working on a fighting game, and that fighting game now was relabeled as a League of Legends game, it'd be fine. At a certain point, this is probably the first case of any company being forward-thinking enough to the point where they realize that League of Legends is going to die out, and that they need to take their characters and the love for those characters and the cosplayers for these characters, particularly in the case of Jinx, and take it to the next level and evolve it. That is something I think that Mario and Nintendo figured out too. Had they literally only made Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3 and never tried to make Mario Party or Mario Kart in the Super NES, Mario probably would have burned out and died. Particularly when you look at like Super Mario World on the Super NES, it's not like that game is so successful that you get a Super Mario World 2 or 3 in that console generation. I don't know if there ever was a Super Mario World 2 or 3, come to think of it. I don't think there was. I should know. That's pretty ignorant of me to not know. Let's see.
Let the immorality tour begin!
Forges the soul.
Get ready to fly!
Honestly, I guess you could go through a long list of characters that would make a lot more sense. Even getting back to the Arkham Knights game, it would make a lot of sense if you made a 4-player like Batman party game, or you made a stealth game where it was Batgirl running around. It kind of makes some sense. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned, but it would kind of make sense for Batgirl to be the most agile and most stealthy of the Bat family, and then also she wouldn't have to engage in combat and get punched in the face as often, which is something you're going to have to deal with, is the fact that Batman, and particularly the Arkham Asylum series, was punching guys in the face and slamming their heads into the ground like crazy, and doing the same to female enemies is going to feel a little different. At least to most people it will.
Check out my fancy footwork!
You have summoned the blade of purgation here.
Okay, what can we do? We can evolve here.
Flash of metal, a silent night!
Burn the sight of living. Try
And
and
then we can
break
attack
this blade.
this.
I'll see you in
Get ready
purgatory.
And then attack this.
I will protect
Give
even
in to your
his
desires!
Then attack that.
Get ready to fly!
And attack that. Gamatsu says Varion Digital Games Expo 2021 Extra Mission Gameplay. This is some new game they must have talked about.
This here is the shady part of town.
A very muscular collection of people,
Seems I'd lost.
and it seems like it is a
I'll
kind
show
of
you.
open world
There is no life after
hack and
death
slash
for you.
RPG.
Don't forget to snag some merch!
It's an interesting idea, certainly, to have very muscular, kind of more leather-clad, like warrior, more to nature characters instead of your standard English armor style characters, or more JRPG settings where they're in crazy anime belts. Like, I guess these are anthropomorphic animals, which would explain the more leather-clad outfits. 6-2 damage. If I play this, I can't play this. Alright, so I think you have to play this one. Hope it hits this one and this one.
Your head and body must part ways.
Get ready to fly!
I will protect even his death.
Yeah, I love this job. Of course I do.
Okay.
Nothing I can't handle!
Gamatsu has this week's Japanese game releases. Asatsugutori, Power Pro Kun Pocket R, and more. I assume this is Asatsugutori This
Step
looks
up.
like the game where they wake up and they're connected to like this
Not with everyone around
medical
me.
bed and blood machine, and then you're trying to figure out why you wake up that way and why people are dying, and
Move, I'll
you
go
like
right
die over
through
and
you.
over again. That's kind of a horror experience, whereas Power Pro Kun Pocket R is just going to be a kid-friendly chibi baseball game for the Switch. It's a little surprising that this is a PS4 game. Seems like it's both for the PS4 and Switch, but it's being advertised through the picture is just a PS4 game. Well, I guess they picked one.
Come, show me the limits of your will.
I don't have a horrible night
Only
because I
one
can't
stands to
evolve it.
ascend to
I played poorly.
begins.
Played very poorly there.
You will know. You've got a death wish. Step up.
A precious life deserves a precious death. More jewels, more. Raise the price. Nothing I can't handle.
Let's see. Gamatsu says a Made in Abyss binary star fall into darkness screenshots. The world of the
You've got a
abyss.
death wish. Step up.
I just saw some images of season 2 of Made in an Abyss. So I'm a little surprised they actually made it to a season 2.
Thanks so much for that.
It also seems like the characters look fairly different from the first season. Like they've been aged a year or so or more. And this game's animation style is not too far off from what the anime looked like. But yeah, Made in Abyss, kind of a dark tale, kind of much more not kid-friendly compared to what it looks like. So unless this game makes it a lot more kid-friendly and you have something closer to Ni no Kuni than the anime, I suspect this is a game that is going to feel oddly out of place one way or the other. I guess you can't target, so we have to hit this one, and this one.
Before darkness
Little hex is pretty bad.
The truth lurks in the dark. You will know. You've got a death wish. Step up.
Let's see. A game called DNF Duel has an official trailer. It's a new 40-second look at a Dungeon Fighter Online based fighting game. Does DNF stand for Did Not Finish?
If you've got a death wish, step
It looks
up.
very nicely animated in this trailer, but that doesn't really mean much. And again, we have the blur on. So you've got a guy with a giant sword. This is an Arc System Works game. Some of these fighting games, particularly from Arc System Works, look really, really nicely animated. To the point where I would be willing to hear an argument that the Arc System Works games are really the games to play and everything else is competing for second place. Arc System Works, I believe, has a very custom, well-programmed software to make 3D models look like 2D anime characters.
I'm the most fabulous demon of them all.
Yeah, that looks interesting. As well as much as any fighting game looks interesting. Okay, this one wouldn't kill this one. This would kill this one. Yeah, I don't think I can win here.
The
I think
truth lurks in the dark.
you have to hit something like that.
Ding dong. May happiness be with you.
Hit that. Hit 2, 4, 6.
I'm fabulous demon of them all. Out of the way! Out of the way! I'm too strong.
Wow, I did win. I'm shocked I won. And that is great because that means now, as far as daily quests are concerned, we now just need to get ranked through ranked victories. We don't have to worry about playing specifically anything, so we can come over here and just play this. Here we have a game on Steam called Infinite Progression, which looks like it's probably a clicker garbage game of some sort. 74 cents English only. I probably need to hurry up here. Here we have a game called Ancient Gods, which looks like a card-based game focusing around Greek gods and other ancient gods, although they are drawn in kind of a unique art style. More than what a different art style than you'd expect. Early access, I'm going to give it a follow. $13.49 English, Vietnamese, Spain, Spanish, Japanese, and Chinese, which that is quite the mix of languages. Here we have a game called High Blast, which just looks like an asset flip low polygon shooter, free to play, single English only, single player online PvP allegedly. Yep. I may still need to put more cushioning in this chair. I took out a lot of cushioning thinking I wouldn't need it, but yeah, I think I may be back to using 4 or 5 different cushions on top of the chair itself. It's ridiculous, but that seems like what it takes, really. A lot of the cushioning just goes really flat. Here we have a game called Take As Needed, which I don't think it's animated particularly well. It seems like it's mostly visual novel with maybe a puzzle minigame in it. And the puzzle minigame doesn't look particularly good. And frankly, it reminds me of Opus Magnum a little too much for my own happiness at this point, because I was not satisfied with Opus Magnum at all. So I'm going to say no to that. Here we have a game called Shapeshifter Shown Episode 1, which almost looks like it's a Clay Fighter clone. But I think I'd have to say no. The idea of making anything like a Clay Fighter game, I think, does not learn the lesson that Clay Fighter as a game did not really work or sell. $7.99 English only. Yeah. Even if you had like the best clay animator to ever exist, making a video game off of that probably doesn't make sense. Probably it's true for stop motion animation also. If you were gonna make a like Nightmare on Christmas video game, I think you'd still animate it there. Or Coraline video game, I think you'd still want to just animate it the normal way. For video games. Here we have a game on Steam called Hyperball Tachyon, which looks like nothing. $6.79 English only. Here we have something called B-17 Flying Fortress, World War bombers in action, which looks like a very old game, and I think it actually is a very old game because it's being published by Microprose.
My blade is autumn.
I don't see any reason why I'd want to play this game because I don't have any nostalgia for it. It doesn't look terrible though. If you told me this was an early 90s PC game, this kind of does feel like something that wouldn't be too terrible. $8.99 English only. But as far as my interest in covering historical games goes, that is fairly lowered by the desire in general just to cover more relevant games. Here we have a game called Kurosari Kingdom, which looks like it's a puzzle game.
No!
They're saying dominoes and puzzles. So it's kind of like a 2048, I think. I don't know, there might be something to this idea. $12.99 English, allegedly full audio. I'd be willing to put this on the follow list. Of course, this is one of those games that definitely would have to have at least 30 reviews that were mostly positive. Otherwise, I would just assume that this game plays very weird and has its own unique play style, but nobody cares and nobody plays it, so it's not relevant. Here we have a game called Jumper, which I assume is a game where you just jump around in space. Low effort kind of asset flip. $4.99 English only. Kind of feels like it should be in VR, but it isn't. Here we have a game called Revisitor, which looks like just neon platforms. Have no real interest. We're calling it a puzzle platformer. It's free, English only. Let's play this.
Smiles are the best medicine.
That's what I wanted. Do I want to evolve and attack at this point?
You were done for.
Probably worth it to do that.
Faith is an expensive. No, the smiles are not free. Everybody.
This next game is tag nudity and sexual content, so let me make sure it's okay. YouTube family friendly. Here we have a game called Midnight Mahjong, which is just 4-player Mahjong with an anime girl. It's been a while since I played Mahjong, so I don't think I would remember all of the rules particularly well. All the scoring rules.
You're done for.
I guess I could say yes to this, but almost certainly I would say no to this because I would just never buy it because it doesn't make a lot of sense to try and show off Mahjong and then have to bend around the nudity and the adult content. And frankly, Mahjong is a fairly long game, so there probably isn't enough content here to make it worthwhile. Seems like you probably are just gonna end up with one scene where she's topless, one scene where she's bottomless, maybe some different poses, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's kinda it. I wouldn't be surprised if it's less than like 6 images or scenes in total. So I'm gonna say no to that.
Is fighting and despair all you know? This world is brutal, but beautiful.
It's funny, I think that reminded me of something, then I immediately forgot what it reminded me of, so much for that. Oh yeah, I was gonna mention this, that YouTube apparently has hit the point. It's been almost, I guess, 10 months now since the YouTube, no, it's probably been closer to 22 months. YouTube, regardless, let me just explain it. YouTube AdSense sent me something, Google AdSense sent me something saying, yeah, there's been no activity on your AdSense account for a while, so we're going to terminate it, which means if we owe you more than $10, we'll send you the $10 in the United States. Otherwise, we're just going to steal it from you and keep it. Which I think that number is even higher in some other places. And it had been a case that if you didn't have $100, they had been sitting on your money anyways. So I think YouTube actually has owed me money for probably at least 10 months, if not 22 months, back when ads were running on my YouTube channel. And this isn't a conversation about me going or complaining that YouTube owed me a pathetically small amount of money. It's more of a conversation to say, at this point, YouTube and Google AdSense is going to have to pay out a decent amount of money to a lot of small-time YouTube content creators who they kicked out of the YouTube Partner Program. I'm sure they are more than happy to do that because at the end of the day it probably saves them money in the long run to not have to monitor or support so many content creators. But yeah, from an insider's perspective and from a content creator's perspective, this feels like this is the back end of another decision that YouTube made a long time ago to ruin YouTube. I could pathetically say, hey, if you can get me up to 1,000 subscribers, then in the next like 30 days, maybe then they wouldn't terminate the AdSense account, but I kind of don't care. Like, if anything, it might make it just that much easier if I ever did get 1,000 subscribers to not even bother to turn on ads and AdSense, although I kind of think I still would. Like, I still very much am in the position where I'm not really trying to care too much about trying to profit off of my content, although it would be nice if I did. Same thing kind of happened also for my Patreon, and I don't know when that actually happened, but I went and looked at my actual Patreon and saw that it had been disabled. I doubt anybody even ever had clicked on that link and tried to support me via Patreon, even though I asked people to. So yeah, my channel is still pathetically rolling around in the mud as far as any way of turning it into something that even slightly looks like a real world job.
You're in good hands. You were done for.
And yeah, I would definitely suggest people not try and make YouTube channels and not try and be YouTubers, because you're highly unlikely to succeed. You have to be in a very specific situation. I could have been flipping burgers, working at Walmart, or doing anything else if I wanted. It's such a unique situation that I am in, and I would have made way, way more money. Let's see. Gamatsu has an article here. Nostalgic Train is coming to the PS5, PS4 on November 25th. Seems like yet another Japanese game around the idea of being nostalgic and riding a train. Kunio-kun 35th Anniversary Birthday Beatdown Special live stream has been set for November 26th, according to Gamatsu. This is the River City Ransom characters, I believe. Although I believe Kunio-kun and games starring Kunio-kun actually predate River City Ransom. This. And then this.
The real battle begins. Let him go! He was so lonely.
And then
Why is this
I guess
so
you do that. Let's see. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yabai, the Hinokami Chronicles, have a trailer for Yahaba and Susumaru, two of the demons. In this, I believe it's a fighting game. Yeah. I guess the thing is, Demon Slayer to me is a lot like Bleach at this point, where it could be very popular at the moment, but unless it has a long-term popularity both in the East and West, it's probably not going to last forever, and it seems kind of hard to suggest you would want to play something like a Bleach fighting game compared to the mini Dragon Ball Z fighter games out there. There very well may only be enough room for Dragon Ball fighting games and nothing else. And Bleach kind of ended badly, and I wouldn't be surprised if Demon Slayer doesn't end particularly well. Okay, I didn't do that right.
Let us conclude. 1, 2, come on, smile.
Moving on, Gamatsu says Bravely Default Brilliant Lights pre-registration is now available in Japan. This is a smartphone game. Looks like an interesting image, but the art style for Bravely Default always looks interesting. Although the actual characters seem like they are more just soft cell CGI. Although, wouldn't really call them chibi. They seem like they're actually oddly stretched out for their art style. Their heads are still really big, but I don't even know what you would call that. Seems like it's a whole new attempt on things. But it's kind of weird in these screenshots how they're trying to depict like what they look like in the concept art or what they look like in the actual default Bravely Default game, and then what they look like in the actual game. And this screenshot is really cropping and centering the images, which is kind of weird too. Probably would be easier just to watch a video trailer. Still haven't really gotten anywhere close to the idea of covering PC games. Like I mean smartphone games. I really don't have any idea how you would do that.
The greater your sin, the crispier I make you.
The time for perennial prayer has come.
Okay.
You're done for.
Well done. Just the way. Time for your purification.
Let's see. Gamatsu had the Idolmaster Starlight Season Starlight Report DLC special. That was an event. It has passed. Microids and Pasta Games announced Arkanoid Eternal Battle. Which seems like this is just going to be a trailer that shows the logo. Nothing. Arkanoid Eternal Battle could be kinda anything. So wouldn't be surprised if it's not much of anything. Here we have a visual novel called Destiny's Plan, which is pretty poorly animated. $5.39, English and Russian. I may have shown off that game quite a bit. Here we have Obscurite Magi, the City of Sin, which looks like one of these RPG games where there's a lot of nudity in it, and then it's been censored for the Steam version. You really don't have characters with that big of breasts unless you're planning on exposing them at some point, particularly when you're animating a character. It's a different thing, certainly, if somebody naturally has very large breasts, although at a certain point nobody has breasts that naturally large unless there's something wrong with them physically. This game is $17.99 English, Japanese, Chinese. See, they're saying it just has strong language on the Steam version. Like almost certainly there is a version of these games. Now, that have more adult content. Now the question it always to ask here would be, are these games that were released as adult games 6 months ago, 2 years ago, and then they made a censored version and sold them again, or are these games coming out day and date with the adult versions of them, and if you just go to Kagura Games website, you would be able to get the uncensored version. Either one of those is possible, and you just kind of never know. It is better, in my opinion, for there to just be an 18+ DLC on Steam, and in most cases Steam seems to be more than willing to accommodate that way of selling things. But seems like different companies have different ways of doing it, and there's really no standard way of doing things. There's nothing I can do right now. Not good. Just end the turn. Gamatsu says Token Rambu Warriors has a second trailer, which is funny because I don't recall seeing a first trailer. This may have been something that had a trailer just last week. Now, and I forgot about it. This does look like it is a better looking Warriors game, if it is supposed to be a Warriors game, than I have ever seen, and it seems like it's set in a different world and a different time frame from most Warriors games. So I'm kind of assuming it's not actually a Warriors game. Although that last bit of the trailer definitely does make it seem like it's a Warriors game where you're fighting a whole bunch of people. Maybe the Warriors games, which I think are made by the same people over and over again, maybe they have finally decided to change their visuals and try something different. Let's see, Komatsu says Atelier Sophie 2, The Alchemist of the Mysterious Dream, has a Plachetta trailer. I assume this character is Plachetta. Which, you know, do we really need to see a trailer for every single character in the game? Probably not, but I mean, that is how they tell you what the game is, and it is to a certain extent how you would determine whether or not you want to play a game. If these characters look interesting through the blurry filter, that might increase your desire. She seems to always wear these bunny ears, but I don't think she's supposed to be a bunny girl or a bunny that is humanoid in form.
Spin in a twirl and out. There's our puppy to game.
Alright, well, this one, this one, this one, this one, that one.
Why is it the string is so pricey? Watch as I wind and wind.
Running is always an option.
I think that worked fairly nicely. Let's see. Kojima Productions has launched a new film, TV, and music division. It is led by the former Sony Interactive Entertainment Chief Legal Officer, which that's quite a different position, but in all fairness, a Chief Legal Officer may not be anything like an actual lawyer. And I wouldn't be so surprised if a C-suite position, even something like a chief legal officer would get filled by somebody who doesn't know anything about the law at all. I wouldn't be surprised if that is the same for like a chief technology officer or technical officer, or where they may not know anything about computers at all.
Hostile life form detected.
The unknown lies
And
beyond the
certainly they
clouds.
would argue, some people, higher managers would argue that they don't need to know anything because they are just that good of a leader,
Hostile life form.
that it doesn't matter
Sustained.
what they're in charge of, as long as they can lead their team or the people beneath them, which wouldn't even really be a team, it'd just be everybody in that department. Here we have a game on Steam called Armored Front Tiger Command, which looks like you control a tank, and while it might be slightly interesting to have a simulation where you control a tank, I don't feel like there's quite enough game there, and frankly I think it's kind of crazy and complicated to drive tanks, and not something that I think people would want to learn. In a lot of ways it's probably not too far off from a airplane flight simulator game, where if you're letting me have decent controls to control a plane, I'm on board. But if you're asking me to actually fly a plane the way planes get flown in reality, with way overcomplicated interfaces, I don't know if that's something I really would care to do.
This'll be over quick. Everything was a lie. Gonna have to fix myself up.
Wanna just evolve something here? I guess we do.
Sleep.
Let's see. Next we have a game that looks like it's in Chinese only. Some kind of time manipulation puzzle game.
I can't
Doesn't
move.
seem that complicated. $1.99, Chinese only. Yeah, it seems like it's just mostly a slide puzzle game. Here we have another game that looks like it's probably Chinese only. Looks like a horror asset flip game. Free to play. Japanese only, I was wrong.
The truth will cut you down. Oh, guinea pigs, where are you?
Play this.
100%
Do
straight
this.
and 0 spin in a turn and out. There's our puppy the game.
We evolve here. We can take out the 7.
Accept harmony.
That's probably about as much as we can do. Do this. Do this. Do this. That. And that.
Verifying access.
Here we have a game called Patriots Back to Civilization, which looks like it's probably an infinite driver slash runner. No interest, $1.19, English only. Here we have a game called Faircroft's Antiques The Forbidden Crypt, which looks like it's just a hidden object game.
Good guinea pig.
$5.24. Still not a terrible price for a hidden object game. And I will say, I kind of like the idea of Faircroft's Antiques being this series in which you have a kind of female protagonist that is actually kind of an empowered protagonist potentially. That's what I'm assuming just off the first frame here, is that she's more of an empowered protagonist, whereas in other games you've definitely seen a case where you maybe are playing as a female character, but their kids are missing, or they're trapped in a horror escape, and there's just always something there that is directing them, guiding them, forcing them into acting.
100% string and 0% fluff.
Begin.
Tell me what to do, like this?
Gonna have to fix myself up.
That one. And in the turn. Of course, I am definitely reading a lot into that single image. Here we have a game called Pizza Man, which looks like it's a platformer of some sort. Doesn't look particularly interesting, although I will say it looks a little bit more visual polished than you would expect. Early access, 59 cents, English only. Here we have another hidden object game, Search All Steampunk, for $1.19. Several languages, claiming full audio in every language on Steam. Here we have a game called JoJo Fighters, which looks like nothing of interest. 59 cents, English only. Here we have a game called Slot Idler, which at the very least that kind of makes some sense. I don't know if there's a full game here that makes sense, but you are pretty much just idling when you're playing a slot machine. Although this doesn't look like a particularly good slot machine game. But yeah, if there was no in-app purchases and you were just paying $3.99 to play slots at home and feed that addiction while not actually putting a continuing amount of money into a slot machine, there might be some value in something like that. But then there also is an argument that you are just potentially feeding a gambling addiction, and that's only going to make things worse in the long run. And while maybe a game like that might help you wean off really playing slot machines, it probably would be more of the opposite. Gamatsu has the Idolmaster Starlight Season DLC characters Kanade Takagaki, Kotoha Tanaka, and Mamimi Tanaka announced. Which I guess maybe they are sisters, unless the names are backwards, and then nobody's related to anyone. I would assume that Tanaka is actually their family name. This is probably what was announced during that special event. This Idolmaster game looks much more like a actual adventure visual novel game than I thought it would be. I thought it would literally just be the dancing on the stage rhythm games, and it may very well just be the dancing on the stage rhythm games, but it may have some cutscenes while showing off. I don't know if there would be really anything that would convince me to play an Idolmaster game if it is just going to be a rhythm game, though. I'd have to admit that seems like a very hard sell for me to try and play any kind of rhythm game. I would be very critical of it for like 5 minutes and then play it probably only for about 10 minutes and that's it. Because part of the thing you would have to do in any kind of music or rhythm game, on top of probably getting content ID'd like crazy, is you'd have to be able to criticize music and audio and I don't think I'm really well set for that.
Hear the roar of my 9 flames. I'm going on ahead.
Let's see. Horizon Forbidden West developer blog, a world of adventure, culture, and opportunity. Okay. Well, I'll trepidatiously accept culture as a good thing and hope that that doesn't mean that Horizon Forbidden West is some kind of weird woke society. This dev blog, though, and looking at the city does make it feel like there is just going to be a bigger, more interactive world for Forbidden West compared to the first game, where I think you probably spend a lot more of your time just wandering big open grassy fields.
Rot and ravage, dear forest.
Gamatsu has the Hitman 3 Year 2 content being announced,
Grovel,
which
like a maggot, you
we're going to add virtual reality support in January, exclusive Target Arcade, and ray tracing for PC, which it doesn't seem like there's going to be any details as far as the actual maps or storyline or modes, ways to play. And I again would have to feel like you are going to be in a weird position with Hitman if you were to try to actually play it right now.
Oh, come on! You were done for.
Like, I really don't know how you could play Hitman 1 and 2 right now, and if it is even worth it to try to play Hitman 1 or 2. The game The Tourist, misspelled T-O-U-R-Y-S-T instead of I-S-T, is coming to Steam on December. Previously it was only available in the Microsoft Store. I don't know if there's really much of a game here. It looks just like a low polygon thing. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Bogdanov vs. Wojak Simulator, which sounds like a troll joke game, and there's these meme faces, so I assume that's the case. $1.19, English only. Here we have a game called BioBots, which looks like an asset flip first-person shooter. Early access, free to play. English only. Here we have a game called Robot 88, which looks kind of like a robot boxing game, but I don't think there's enough here. Robot fighting game.
Hey, let's play.
It's online PvP only, English, $5.99. I think we have to say no to that.
My thunderbolts shall guide you, if they don't kill you first.
Do this one. End the turn. Here we have a game called Hidden Ghost Town, which looks like there might be something here, but it could also be a fairly empty game. Let's see. Nope, it is just find the hidden objects. The art looks better than most find the hidden object games, but it's still just a find the hidden object game. Early access, $11.99. Here we have a game called Breakdown, which looks like one of those mobile games where you have to click so it falls downward and not hit the black parts.
Stop!
Yeah, I don't think that there's enough of a game here to justify even a $2.79 price. English only. Like, even as a cell phone game, this was a concept that I think really only worked for a brief moment in time, and then
Your shining faith will
most
carry
people
you.
probably lost interest in it. Let's see, GameDeveloper.com says Forza Horizon 5 sets the Xbox Game Pass launch record with 10 million players. I think we had already talked about this. Nordisk Games has taken a majority stake in Star Stable Entertainment. Okay. Over 1,500 Activision Blizzard finally signed up for that petition for calling for codex removal. I don't know if it was an online petition or like ridiculous or a local one, so maybe hundreds of employees from across Activision Blizzard and other locations actually weren't nearby, so they couldn't have physically signed it. But also that may be the exact opposite scenario where it was online and then a whole bunch of people who didn't even work at Activision Blizzard signed it. 1,500 though definitely sounds like a big number. Much better than a lot of the other protests we've seen where it's barely 20 people even there on the picket line. And the picket line looked big too. I think people are actually serious about this one. Of course, nowadays it's so easy to just call people actors, and there literally are rent-a-crowd services where you could rent people to show up at a picket line. GameDeveloper.com says has a feature here, ports, remakes, and beyond, to chat with Aspire Media's about Aspire Media's 25 years, which might be interesting to you if you want to learn about Aspire Media. What does this one do? This. Do this. Let's go ahead and end the turn. GameDeveloper.com has the same article. Kodak would consider leaving Activision Blizzard if he fails to fix culture issue. The Wolfire Games antitrust lawsuit against Valve has been dismissed. Although I don't even remember this lawsuit. It's been so long. A U.S. district judge says that Wolfire does not articulate sufficient facts to plausibly allege an antitrust injury. Which in part I think means that if somebody was going to bring an antitrust lawsuit, it probably would have to be an actually injured party that could prove it, or the US government themselves, and probably the US government would get a much better case. So the case has just been dismissed, probably with prejudice, maybe not, so maybe they could refile. This is the Overgrowth developer filed a lawsuit in April after claiming an extraordinarily high cut of revenue Valve takes from Steam developers. Ah, yes. This was the company that was upset about the 30% cut that pretty much is in line with every other storefront that sells video games. Let's see. And I quote here in the document uploaded by to court listener, the judge, which maybe they should always reference the district judge as district judge coroner instead of shortening it, but whatever. Or just saying the judge, said that Wolfire failed to prove that Valve's fees are supra competitive. Which supra, I guess in this case, means below competitive instead of super being above. That's a funny way to phrase it, but whatever. That is legalese in a nutshell. Is find the funniest way to phrase anything so people don't understand. Explaining that the company has always charged the same fee to game publishers, 30%, yet did not become dominant in the market until 2013. So I guess if Valve ever increased their percentage cut or their percentage fees, they might be in trouble. Arguably, maybe that's true for any business, is that you should probably start off with a fairly high fee and never lower it for fear of somebody claiming that your previous fees were unfair, and you probably could never raise the fees on a revenue split anyway, so you probably would want to start off high. Now you can lower it. I don't think anybody would complain there. It's the raising it. The judge also noted it's kind of rude here. Twice now they've not given him his proper title, so either you're going to be respectful for the guy or you're not, and I guess they're not. Also noted that while some other storefronts have undercut Steam in that regard, they have yet to wrestle away dominance from Valve, suggesting its fee is consumerant with Steam's platform value to game publisher. Let's see. It was dismissed without prejudice and will leave to amend, meaning the company will be able to file a second amended complaint addressing those issues and others highlighted by the judge within 30 days, which I wouldn't be surprised if that is exactly what happens, because that is the long process of the court system. And then GameDeveloper.com says Death Stranding developer Kojima Productions opens a multimedia division in California. Opening in California too is really another stake in the ground, certainly saying that Kojima has no interest of ever working in or from Japan again. He has gone full Hollywood, for lack of a better term. Here we have a game on Steam called Somewhere in a Clay Nowhere, which feels a little Clay-like as a top-down twin-stick shooter, but doesn't feel that Clay-like. It's $5.99 English only. Not too interested in it. Yeah, I'm still at the point where if I sneeze or cough, that leads to a twinge in my back. Although I kind of somewhat wisely also took pain pills before streaming today, which that usually leads to me falling asleep. Also, I suspect maybe I'm kind of always in pain, as crazy as that sounds, and whenever I do take aspirin or acetaminophen, whatever, I do tend to fall asleep and sleep a little bit better. Let's see, here we have a game called Airball, which, yeah, kind of looks like a 90s game, but also kind of looks like nothing of interest, even as a 90s game. I mean, you really have to recognize just how many old 90s games really sucked and weren't worth playing. $3.39 English only. Yeah, generally old games. There was a lot of them that really sucked. And
this is how you do fireworks.
I think a lot of value in potentially.
The time for perennial prayer has come.
Like
The real battle begins.
keeping that in mind. Yeah, keeping in mind the fact that a significant amount of old games sucked, and yeah, even today there's a significant amount of new games that suck. So, like, I guess that's true for everything, though. I don't think there's any medium of creation in which a vast majority of things are good. If there is a medium like that, it's probably fairly mediocre. I'd say probably jigsaw puzzles are somewhat close to that, where since most jigsaw puzzles are about the same number of pieces, the same size and shape of pieces, I think an average jigsaw puzzle is an extremely average. But there are a few instances certainly where you have some amazing jigsaw puzzles, things that go above and beyond what you would normally expect.
Why is this so hard?
Well, that did not work. Here we have a game on Steam called Scrapvival, which looks like nothing. Free to play, English only. Here we have a game on Steam called Crazy Alien, which looks like just a platformer of no real interest, even though the animation looks kind of nice. 59 cents, English only. Here we have a game called Duck Simulator, which looks very low effort. For free, English only. Here we have a game that's probably Chinese only, called Fate Secret 2. Doesn't look bad. Unfortunately, English not supported, $22.60, Chinese only. Here we have a game called The Missing Link, which just looks like an RPG game. $6.99, English and Portuguese Brazil. Here we have a game called 2020 Trail, which looks like it's probably a joke game. Oregon Trail parody game, but doesn't really look like it's anything worth playing. It's free with in-app purchases. That's a bad business model, I think, for that type of game. Here we have a game called Needin, which looks like a asset flip garbage game. 84 cents, English and Turkish. It's an interesting price, 84 cents. Gametsu says the co-op puzzle game Zoya, The Celestial Sisters for Switch and PC launches February 8th, 2022. Which there might be something here of interest. It does potentially look interesting. Yep, there might be something there. Yeah, we have a game on Steam called Farlight Commanders. Which... yeah, I don't think there's a game here of interest. $8.99, English, allegedly full audio, several other languages. Oops. Let's not show some weird DeviantArt. I don't even know what I clicked on to bring up a DeviantArt. Some kind of cosplay thing. Guess I'd have to log in to check it. Let's see. Gametsu says Rockstar Games apologized for Grand Theft Auto the trilogy, the definitive edition technical issues, and announces update plans. They also brought back the original version of Grand Theft Auto, and anyone who owns the definitive edition is getting the original versions. I kind of would think it would still suck. Yeah, here's that story from GameDeveloper.com. It'd really suck though if very little effort actually was put on the definitive editions and they just give you the original editions, and this was in some weird way a bait and switch to try and get people to purchase the original versions for people who hadn't already owned it, and or repurchase the original editions, because yes, they probably would never completely delist the definitive editions, but it may always be such a worst case product that people have effectively maybe bought the game twice, and really they should have been refunded for the definitive edition being so bad instead of being given something they already own. Let's see. Yeah, I don't think, just because of my back, I don't think it's really worth it to try and like get ranked wins here or play off screen, or do a follow list cleanup, although I desperately do need to do a follow list cleanup. Here we have a game called Romneo's Adventure, which looks like nothing. Here we have Steam experiencing some downtime. Then we reload. Game called Cybird. This looks very neon-y, but there might be a game here. Early access VR, $14.99. This might be a lot of Beat Saber type swinging with enemies. We'll give it a follow. Here we have a game called Escape Room: The Sorcerer's Curse, which looks like an escape room. So I'll give it a follow just because of that. $4.99 English, allegedly full audio. Here we have a game called Oval Racer Series Stocks Cards, which looks like nothing of interest. Early access, $15.99. Third party EULA, English only. We haven't been talking about the EULAs too much. Here we have Cupid Nonogram, which is just a nonogram game. I like the anime Cupid Girl as a concept, but I doubt that would catch on. $2.69 English, Portuguese, Brazil. I don't know if the overalls really makes a lot of sense for a Cupid anime girl, or an anime Cupid girl. Makes a lot of sense looking that way. Here we have a game called Cube Flip, which looks like nothing of interest. $3.99. Whole bunch of languages, allegedly full audio in every language, allegedly every language supported. And here's a game called Without Pain, which I'll say no to. And what was Hugo's House of Horror? I left that open because I was thinking about that. Which definitely means I now need to probably just go through my Twitter feeds. It's probably a little bit easier just to play it safe and in this stream today, right now, and instead of potentially trying to do some follow list cleanup, I could definitely try to do some follow list cleanup, but I don't think that's the right move. Plus, if I was going to do that, it would be, it would kind of also want me to play more Shadowverse, and I definitely don't want to do this. Res Infinite, or just the original Res game, is at its 20th anniversary, so they put out a video, I guess, talking about Res as a game. They've apparently trademarked Res 20. or trademarked Rez and put a 20 after it, one or the other. I don't know if that really means that we will see a remaster or re-release of Rez. It's kind of hard to remaster a game that has wireframe animation anyway, so remastering it almost would be just fixing the audio to make it more better sounding. Apparently Marvel's Avengers Spider-Man update won't include story missions, unlike the previous character DLC for the game, according to Video Games Chronicles. Yeah, I guess I started fairly early, so there's not like there's a lot of news even to talk about. I feel like that Tiny Tina's game came and went really fast. Either it hasn't come out at all. Maybe it hasn't come out at all, because I didn't even see anybody like cover it. So maybe that's the case. THQ Nordic apparently just launched a Twitter page specifically for their store, their US storefront, which maybe that is the goal, is that eventually THQ Nordic will be just such a big publisher that they can convince people to buy direct from them. I wouldn't be surprised if we start to see a lot more of that happening, where people are selling directly from their own storefronts, and retail stores, resellers like Walmart and such, don't have enough power to stop them or compete with them. A lot of that would certainly come down to how many websites you're willing to put your credit card into. A service like PayPal, if PayPal didn't have so many other problems that it creates for itself, could have very much created a situation where more people were willing to buy things on the internet. But I still think there's a fairly significant number of people that are not willing to put anything on the internet ever. So pretty much all we have to talk about is December's free games with Amazon Prime, which, yep, looking at these pictures, that doesn't seem like much of anything. Need for Speed Hot Pursuit, Journey to Savage Planet, Football Manager, More Creed, Spellcaster University, YouTuber's Life, Stubbs the Zombie, and Rebel Without a Pulse, and Tales of Monkey Island Complete Pack, which is the Telltale games. And that's not what those pictures show either. So I have no idea what this is supposed to be. Is this the November? Yeah. Some of those things are not being shown. But yeah. That's pretty much all I have to talk about. Like, in theory, there are about 20 games here, starting with F, that we could look at to do some fall list cleanup. And that would get me from F to G. Like, something like this came out in 2021. I think I'd still give this a chance. This is Claymation, though. So if my argument against Claymation before still stands true, I really shouldn't give this another chance, but I will. Here you have something called Floor Plan 2, which still doesn't have 30 reviews. Floor Plan 2 is the puzzle game in VR. So close that one. Floor Pan 1 hands-on edition from 2017 barely has even 78 reviews. And see, what's funny is this was parodied on Saturday Night Live. This was played by the likes, I believe, of PewDiePie, and still as a VR game, even a cheap VR game, very few people played it or reviewed it. Here we have Float Sim as a colony city manager. This looks interesting. Interesting art style, interesting concept. It's still early access from 2019, unfortunately. I can be generous and leave it on the fall list, but I really shouldn't be. We have one called Flow Weaver, which is just still 2021. Here we have one called Fluffy Core. That's still 2021. Here we have something called Fly Corp, which is a simulation game and is still early access. Yeah, doing a fall list cleanup at this point is kind of impossible to do because the pandemic has just shifted what is reasonable as far as how long it would take somebody to take a game out of early access or how long it would take a game to get reviewed. This is actually good, but it's a VR game, so it stays on the fall list anyways. Like, here you have one that's 2020, and it's 100% positive, but really struggling as far as relevance. So let's actually see how it plays and make a decision. We either should say yes to this game or no to this game completely, regardless of it not really being relevant. And I think we might say no to this game because I think this is a game where you are trying to control things with maybe just keyboard only, which that'd be annoying. And it seems like you're really just flinging yourself. Yeah, I think we say no to this. Even though it looks nicely polished visually, it is kind of one of those frustration games. It feels like you maybe could play it with one mouse, but maybe not. Maybe you're having to press keyboard keys, and that would be kind of crazy. So no to that. Here we have one that's negative, so I can immediately say no to this. I don't even know specifically why I would have said yes to that. Here we have something called For Evelyn, which, yeah, probably won't ever get relevant. And it really just looks like an RPG game. The eye scar thing is slightly different, but yeah, I think no. $7.99 English one. If I'm gonna get into RPG games, as I am trying to, I definitely don't want to get into bad RPG games or RPG Maker games. I want to get into 3D quality games. Is this one in early access? Is it single player? Yes. So, For the People is a political management game. Sim. It's a communist factory town. Alright. Put it on the wish list. Dangerously political game, certainly, but I'm not super afraid of that. Here we have something called For the Warp, which is still early access from 2020. I think we could probably say no to this. Roguelike deck building game in space. No, I don't think so. I'm going to say no to that. Raise our standards a little bit. Here we have something that's mixed reviewed, which is a shame because it looks like it could have been good, but we'll get rid of that. Foregone. Is this early access? No. Is it single player? No. Well, I think then the positive reviews say yes to this one. Let's promote that to a wish list listing. The Forgetter needs a little bit more time to get reviews, I think. Forgotten Fields, same thing. Forgotten Hill, First Steps as a point and click horror game. Is this a game I really would want to play? Well, I'll give it a chance and put it on the wish list. Maybe I shouldn't do that, but $2.99 doesn't seem crazy. And I guess the question would be, this game, Forgotten Hill Mementos, it's already on the wish list, which definitely also makes the argument that this one should be on the wish list. Delusion. So there's a whole trilogy of them for less than $10, which that doesn't look too bad. I have something called Forgotten Spirits, which needs a little bit more time. Here we have Forgotten Trace, Thanatos in Nostalgia from 2020. I think we can say no to this visual novel. Doesn't look particularly great or well animated. We'll get rid of that. Probably have far too many visual novels. Fort Triumph as a turn-based tactical RPG game. Is that something I would want to play? Says it's turn-based combat like of XCOM with the world exploration of Heroes of Might and Magic. I would assume is what HOMM stands for. Alright, well, put that on the wish list. Seems good enough. Is there any reason to buy Forza Horizon 4 at this point? Probably not, but whatever. This came out March 9th, and we're already up to the 5th game. Here we have something called Fossil Fuel, which looks like you're shooting dinosaurs. And it actually looks good. So we'll put that on the wish list. $19.99. English only. Fostering Apocalypse needs a little bit more time to get reviews. Video Poker doesn't look terrible, so we'll leave it on the fall list. Fox Hime Zero is overwhelmingly positive as a visual novel, and I guess at a certain point I think my wish list may just get full of visual novel games. $1.99. Japanese full audio. See if there's any adult content warning. Nope, not really. At a certain point, we may very well just have a wish list, or I may very well have a wish list that is just full of visual novels, and if somebody gives me the visual novel, I'll cover it, but otherwise, maybe not. And at a certain point, my wish list may just be visual novels, and then there's very little desire to potentially buy more games at that point. But there will always be newer games on the wish list, certainly. This Fox in the Woods doesn't look like anything of interest, so I'm going to take it off. Looks like a survival game. Fox and Land. needs more time with only 17 reviews. Fox Paw, a furry breakout light adventure, would need more time. This game is mostly positive. Fragile, although it is mixed more recently. This is a VR game. Nope. Well, overall, Mob Rule says it's 70% positive, just right there on the edge. So I'll put it on the wish list. But yeah, just kind of feel like it would be a tough sell compared to almost any other game. Frail Faces, I don't even know why this would have been on the fall list. This looks like just total garbage. I guess these weird animation styles may have caught my attention for a brief second, but yeah, I think what you have is a case here of a poorly made top-down animation, top-down shooter that had some weird animation that caught my attention. Let's take that off the fall list. Here we have Frayne Odyssey, Dragon's Odyssey. Frayne Dragon's Odyssey is what it's called. Which, yep, I think we have to say no to that. Honestly, not really good reason why that was on the fall list in the first place. Franken Time Twister Machine in 2019. I think we have to say no to that. I often have a lot of weird games, but more and more I'm learning that there's plenty of good weird games that you don't need to try and have bad weird games on top of that, or mediocre weird games. Frankentin Roots from 2019. I think we can remove that one too. Start getting rid of things from 2019. Frenuki's Adventure. It's mostly positive, so I'll give it a little bit more time. Here we have Freaky Clown Town Mystery, which is mixed. Which is a shame, but I'll get rid of it. I mean, if you have a free game and it's still not getting reviewed well, that says something. We have Frederick, which is mostly positive, but it doesn't have... It's a music game series. I guess the question would be, are the other two games? Yeah. I already own the other two games. I might as well just put in Frederick 3 here. Just cover the whole series. This Freediver it's a VR game. But it looks nice. But it has to stay on the fall list because it's a VR game. Well, that doesn't even want to load. Here we have Firefighter Tetris with visual novel elements. Weird. We'll give that some more time. Frog Detective 2 is rated positively, so go ahead and put that on the wish list. Frog's Princess. Seems like nobody played this, but I kind of want to keep this. No, this description tells me not to keep this, that this is probably a very low effort attempt at making something to appeal to kids. Because you pick your decisions based on these emotions and moves as a visual novel, but then you're still kind of making a novel, which doesn't make sense. It is an interesting thought, certainly, if you could make a visual picture book or instead of a visual novel video game, but I just suspect that really would never work. Frog World here. Yeah, there might be something to this, but probably not. We'll leave it on the fall list. Okay, we have a game called From the Shadows. Is this early access? Nope. It's rated well. Let's put it on the wish list then. Yep. Doesn't look great, but it's also free, so whatever. Frontier Quests needs more time. We have about 10 more games. Frontline World War II needs more time. Frost is rated well as a deck building survival RPG game. A little too much white on white, certainly, but I guess that would be snow. Single player only, English and French. Put that on the wish list. Again, this is probably one of those games where I'd never actually buy or play, though. Fruit Factory. I think we can say no to that since it has only one review. Fuji. It's rated very positively. Is it a VR game? Yes, it is, so it stays on the fall list. Furious Seas is a VR game, so it stays on the fall list. Furry Fury. It's rated very positively. Can you play it single player? Yes, but it's still early access from 2019, which at a certain point I think you just have to give up on something that's early access, like something that they didn't update, so I'm gonna just get rid of it. Maybe this is gonna be a hidden gem we miss, but I mean, what can you do when if they don't ever bother to update and come out of early access, and it's been 2 years even in a pandemic? That's kind of crazy. Fury Unleashed. Is this early access? No. Single player. Looks like a platforming shooter or maybe Metroidvania game. Let's put that on the wish list. And then the last game we have here is called Fuzzy Dungeon, which needs a little bit more time. So yes, we were able to fix the issue for the most part. The only other game we had here was Freestyle 2 Street Basketball, which overall is on the edge, but positive. It's free to play with a lot of DLC, but it's MMO, unfortunately. So I bet it's probably pretty dead. It's a shame there isn't a single player version of this, because this looks really nice. It's a nice art style and a nice concept, but I have to say no to that. And see, that will effectively allow me to now open up off screen all the G letter things on the fall list, and we can just constantly, as we get free time, work on cleaning up the fall list, which I added a ton of games to the fall list last week, and that was probably a mistake, but at least we got things done. In fact, we've gotten things so much done that we were able to do fall list cleanup today. The only thing we didn't accomplish was getting all those ranked wins on Shadowverse, but I don't really care too much about that. Alright, well, that's going to be it for this stream. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, you can friend me on Steam and get me a game or a gift card, or you could click on the link to Patreon and, assuming it works, actually support me there. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.